Good morning, guys, or good afternoon, whether you're joining me from the present or the future. Welcome back to another one of my FutureFight Vanguard series. Surprisingly, I'm still awake, but I think I'm going to go to sleep after this one, but I wanted to at least pump out one more video for you guys. I'm trying to do like 2 a day until we catch up or something like that, so currently it's like 3 in the morning. So yeah, we're going to try to get through this one quite quickly, but I'm still going to explain everything thoroughly. But yeah, be sure to check out the Cardfight Empire Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Patreon for contests, polls, and all of that cool stuff. If you would like to be involved in that, the links for all of that stuff is down in the description down below, so go check that out. And without further ado, today we're going to be talking about Ahsha, the GB8 Ahsha deck. So it is our last FutureFight Vanguard that we are doing for the GB8 series. So I know it's been like a long time coming, and we're all probably getting sick of the word GB8 from my mouth. So yeah, we're gonna wrap up the series with this, and with that being said, let's get right into it. So we're gonna flip our G zone as usual. Alright, so we are running the Ronnie Marduka build of Ahsha, just like some of the builds that you guys have seen of Neonectar on my channel. So, you know, nothing out of the ordinary, but we are running the new Ahsha. She has 3 abilities. The first one is a Bloom ability. For those of you who don't know, Bloom is Neonectar's mechanic. Whenever another unit with the same card name is usually placed, Bloom, it usually triggers if the unit has Bloom, and it usually does an effect based off of that. So Ahsha, the new Ahsha's Bloom is Generation Break 2. When your other unit with the same card name as this unit is placed on Rearguard Circle, Counter Charge 1 and Soul Charge 1. So that's a Vanguard only skill. So basically whenever you call another Ahsha or you call a Thuria and target Ahsha, you will Counter Charge 1 and Soul Charge 1, which is pretty cool. Helps you refund some of the skills, and even helps you fuel your stride skill for the next upcoming turn if you don't have the resources to do it. Its second ability, it's at the end of each turn you choose a card, or you may choose a card from your hand, and call it to Rearguard Circle. So it allows you to call cards at the end of your turn and the end of your opponent's turn. Usually I like calling on the end of my opponent's turn because it can set up some really good plays with Thuria and stuff like that. Then its on stride skill is during your turn when your G unit strides on this unit, Counter Blast 1 and Soul Blast 1. And then if you do, you can choose one of your rearguards, search your deck for a copy of that rearguard with the same name from the deck, and then call it to the Rearguard Circle, and that unit gains boost until the end of the turn. So giving a unit the ability to boost is very, very powerful, because you can even call like grade 3s and grade 2s and they can boost, which in this deck is super, super powerful, and you guys will see why in a few moments. We do run, for our backup grade 3, we run Summer Heat Flower Maiden Marduka. So what Marduka does is it has 2 abilities as well. The first ability is a Vanguard ability if you do happen to ride it. When one of your rearguards with a Bloom ability is chosen by the effects of one of your opponent's cards, you can Soul Blast 1 and draw a card once per turn. I wish this card wasn't once per turn, that it would be like a true backup for this deck, but you never really want to ride into this. It's just pretty, like, it's not great. But you can ride into it if you don't have another grade 3, obviously. And then its second ability is Bloom, Vanguard, or Rearguard skill. Whenever you place another unit with Marduka in its name on the Rearguard Circle, or whenever you place another card named the same name as this unit, you choose up to one of your units, and then it gets plus 3,000. And then if that card is also named Sunflower Maiden Lonnie, then it gets an on-hit skill that says when this unit's attack hits, draw a card and Soul Charge 1. So Marduka and Lonnie, for those of you who don't know, have great synergy with each other because they work based off of each other's effects. Marduka gives Lonnie's on hit skills, so usually you'll have like these in the back row and these in the front row being your attackers. And then Lonnie's Bloom herself says when another unit named Lonnie is placed on rearguard circle, you can choose up to 5 units named Lonnie and or Marduka, and then each turn they get until the end of the turn they get a continuous ability that says they get plus 1000 for every Bloom card on your board. So depending on how many times you Bloom, like the powers can get really big because of Lonnie. And then it has a second ability, which on the rearguard circle and in the deck, this card is also treated as a Marduka. So we pretty much run 8 Mardukas and 4 Lonnies. It's a very, very good combo. Then we run 4 Thuria. So what Thuria does is when this card would be placed on a rearguard circle, you can choose one of your units, and if you have a Vanguard with Ranunculus in his name, this unit will be regarded as that unit when it's played. So what this means is that you can declare a unit before you play Thuria, and then play Thuria, and Thuria takes that name, so Bloom does trigger. If you do select Lonnie as your card that you select, it says regarded as that unit, so it is regarded as Lonnie and Marduka since this has both names. So that's like a cool little thing that some people don't know about. And then its second ability is Generation Break 1. At the beginning of your main phase, if you have a Ranunculus Vanguard, you can choose a card from your drop zone with the same name as this unit, which means that if it takes the name of triggers, it can even return triggers to your deck, which can be pretty good. And then if you do, return this unit to your hand and shuffle your deck. So it bounces to your hand in order to recycle. Then we have 2 Maiden of Flower Screen. Maiden of Flower Screen is really just in here to copy the name of Lonnie and such. But yeah, so we try to make like every one of our grade 2 units like a Lonnie basically, so that we can do it that way. But you basically just send a normal unit back to your deck and shuffle for the ability to choose one of your rearguards, and it becomes the same name as that until the end of the turn. We run 4 Padminis to Stride Fodder, pretty self-explanatory. 4 Flower Keeper Dragon. The reason why we ran this PG is because the skill is super, super useful and good. When this card is placed on the guard circle from hand, we can discard a card, and if we do, we PG. And then if the chosen unit that we're PGing, it has Ranunculus in its name, you look at the top 5 cards of your deck, then you can search for up to 1 card with the same name as your Vanguard or Rearguard and put it into your hand. Now, when you don't have a lot of hand, like this really helps you kind of maintain like PG fodder and stuff like that. Like, or if you have some really good defensive rearguards on the board, you can also check top 5 for them and hopefully get it. Whew. Sorry guys. Whew. All right. Next we run 4 Pure Maiden Katrina. What Pure Maiden Katrina does is it has a Bloom ability that says when another Katrina is placed on the rearguard circle, if you have a Vanguard with Ranunculus in its name, choose up to 5 of your Katrinas on rearguard, and those units hit plus 4,000 power. So keep in mind, like, these do stack. Like, if you were to have 2 Katrinas on the board already and you played a Katrina, then the Bloom would activate twice, giving 4,000 to or 8,000 to 3 or at least 5 units, up to 5 of your Katrinas. Then we run 2 Sweet Berries, pretty like generic, honestly, in Neo Nectar. Like, this card's too good not to run. Basically just says that whenever you play it, like, you can choose one of your rearguards and send Maiden of Sweetberry back to your deck and get a copy of that card that you selected. So then we have 2 starters, Arumi. So what Arumi does, or Elmi in English, is if you have a Vanguard with Ranunculus in its name, you can shove this card into your soul. You put this card into your soul, and then if you have a Vanguard with Ranunculus in its name, choose one of your grade 2 or greater units, and you get to search for a copy of that card and call it to rearguard circle, and then at the end of the turn, the unit called with Elmi's skill bounces to your hand. So, pretty solid card, very good. Then we run 4 Milas. This is the Ahsha crit trigger that shoves itself into soul and gives plus 5k. So we're running like a crit variant instead of like the normal stand variant, just to see if like we can do well with it, which it actually performed quite well. And it also synergizes better with the GB8 because the GB8 like lets you call cards like before the attack. So stand triggers become kind of useless except for like a plus 5k. So then we run 4 Agave Knight, pretty vanilla crit trigger. Then we run 4 Cosmos Fairy Lizbeth. So this is like an English format deck that I'm pretty much giving you guys, because in Japan Lizbeth is limited to 1 but not in English, because of you know, how good she is. So what Lizbeth does is when another unit named Lizbeth is placed on your rearguard circle, you can choose up to 5 Lizbeths on your rearguard and they get an axe skill to the end of the turn. And then the axe skill is putting it back to your deck and choosing a normal unit from your drop zone. And then you can choose up to 4 cards with the same card name as the card that you chose from your drop zone and return to your deck, shuffle, and draw a card. So what this means is you can play Lizbeth and without doing anything else, you can move it back to your deck and shuffle and draw a card without putting anything back. But if you do want to put back normal units, you are free to as well. Then we run 4 Cherry and Blossom, which is the new G Guardian or the new heal trigger from the Fighters collection. It actually has a pretty good skill. When you use it to G Guard into Coach Arena, which is the newer G Guard, you get to choose a normal unit from your drop zone and put it on the bottom of your deck. So pretty good in my opinion. Then we have 4 of one of my favorite cards ever, Verano. So what Verano does is you Soul Blast 1, and you flip a card in your G zone face up. Then you get to choose a card from your hand and 1 from your drop zone and return them to your deck. And then when this card is placed on Vanguard Circle, that's when you activate the skill. And if you do, you get to choose up to 2 cards from your hand, call them to Rearguard Circle, and then you get to choose the same number of your rear guards as the number of Veranos face up in your G zone and call them. And then all the cards called get boost. So this card's very good. I usually start with the opening play to call Mardukas with it so that my grade 3 can boost. Then we have 4 Dream Spinning Oculus, Dream Spinning Ranunculus, Ahsha. I think I combined Ahsha and Ranunculus in my head like really fast as I was going. But yeah, what the Ahsha Stride does is you can flip a copy of it face up, and then to the end of the turn your unit gets an ability. And then also you get to choose a unit and search a copy of that card. So be aware that this does give a skill, like an axe skill to Ahsha, so you do have to like declare that you're triggering it, otherwise you won't get it. Then we have 2 Ranunculus Inglorious Bloom Ahsha. What this does is it has Generation Break 2 ability, Counter Blast 1, Soul Blast 1, and choose a card from your G zone and turn it face up. And if you have a heart with Ranunculus in its name, you get to choose one of your units, search your deck for one of those units with the same name, shuffle, and then you all the units called get plus 5,000 power for every Dream Spinning Ahsha in your G zone. And then if you have a unit on the rearguard with the same name as this unit gets plus 1 critical until the end of the turn. So this unit goes critical for calling cards with the same name as your Vanguard. Otherwise, it just gives plus 5,000 power to everything called. Yeah. Then we have 1 Lyn Rose Premier, the Lady of the Hour herself, our GB8, which is actually quite good. Like I didn't expect the GB8 for Neo Nectar to be that great. But when this unit attacks a Vanguard, you can choose 3 normal units from your drop zone and return them to your deck. And then if you do, you choose one of your units and you search for up to 3 cards with the same name as that unit, call them to Rearguard Circle, and then all the units called with this effect and this unit get plus 10,000 power. So you can basically Lyn Rose Premier after calling 3 will get plus 30k, and then plus whatever, you know, whatever's going on, Bloom and so on and so forth. Then we run 2 Coast Arena. Basically it's our new G Guardian from the Fighters collection. Its skill is Counter Blast 1 and choose a G Guardian and turn it face up when it's placed on the guard circle. And if you do, this unit gets plus 5,000 shield, and then you get to choose to call a card from your hand. And if you call a card and it has the same name as something else on your board, then this unit gets plus 10,000 shield. So pretty good. Then we run 3 Rain Breath Dragon. Rain Breath Dragon's pretty generic. It's just whenever you place it on the guard circle, choose up to 1 card from your hand, call it to the rear guard circle, and then that unit gets resist. So if you're calling with something that you think will destroy it, like you can give it resist. And also, if you called a card, this unit gets plus 5,000 shield. So it turns itself into a nice 31k body shield for us, which is never bad. Like It's actually pretty good. Like, you can actually do some defensive plays with Marduka on your opponent's turn as well, gaining power to your Vanguard and stuff like that. So we are gonna do the Ahsha GB8 1 game, so we're getting right into the games. First, we played against Great Nature, it looks like, and we're starting off first. I ride Katrina and pass turn. He attacks me, I don't guard. Now I ride Thuria and attack him. He rides Binoculus Tiger and attacks with the rearguard version. Then I no guard the Vanguard version and take a crit, unfortunately. So I do a heal, so that's kind of what I was hoping for there. So that's good that that came through right there. So he's using a Fonk skill to counter boss 1 and flip a card, and then I'm guessing he's giving all of his units. Yeah, so he selected all 4 of his units to gain resist. So that his Vanguard can get pumped up really big. And I do check a heal, and I end up healing out of it, like, anyways. But yeah, now it's our turn, and thank goodness we have, like, you know, one of our pieces that we're good with. So counter boss 1, soul boss 1, Ahsha skill, call yeah, so we end up calling Ronnie and Marduka off of Verano, and then we use the skills, all the skills, to get a perfect formation. And I'm typing like the Lonnie counters in the rearguard circle so that, you know, our opponent knows what's up. But we do attack for 26, and our opponent no guards, and we triple crit the frick out of him. So that's kind of like the good thing about like Neonectar is, like, if you play it the Tokuha way, I call it, with a bunch of crits, like, your opponent's gonna have to no guard one of those big attacks eventually, and when they do, like, you'll kind of just be there waiting. But yeah, Ahsha GB8 2. Game 2, it looks like we're playing against Shadow Paladin, Claret Sword in specific. Our opponent gets to start off the game. We don't have a grade 2 or a grade 3 in our hand, which is super unfortunate. So we're hoping that that gets better. We do, like, no pass all of his attacks, and we still end up G-assisting anyways. And then we shuffle, we attack his Vanguard. He takes it, and then he rides Revolt and decides to rush us a little bit more. We no guard the Vanguard, and yeah. So we G-assist again. We literally G-assisted twice this game already. And then at this point, I just started playing like I didn't care, because, like, yeah, it's difficult. But we do attack with our Vanguard. We do check 1 critical. He does check a stand trigger, however. So he's using the skill of Revolt to call Swordbreaker. And then I guess he's using this skill. And called Abyssal Summoner, or Abyss Summoner. So he attacks us for 21. We uses the skill of Orgeyser Dragon. And then I PG it, check top 5, don't get anything. And then he attacks us for 17, we guard, and then we stride. So we go into Verano again, it looks like. So we're soul blasting 1, returning a card to you. And then we play Ahsha and her crit trigger. 2 crit triggers, actually. So Our opponent guards, and then we, you know, we super check criticals. Is what we're supposed to do in this deck, I guess. So our opponent calls Swordbreaker again, which I was like, how does he have all this soul? But I guess he hasn't really used much of it, to be honest. He does end up playing Grand Mew, which lets him get an extra grade 1. Yeah, so he's getting rid of Orgeyser Dam, or Regrets for Orgeyser Dam skill, and he checks 2 heal triggers off of that. So I pretty much knew I wasn't gonna win at that point, literally that exact point. And then he attacks us for 36. We're not really able to do much but Coast Arena. And then we also G-guarded with another Coast Arena. So he checks the critical and puts it on all rear guard, and then he checks the heal, puts it on all rear guard, and then attacks us for 47. We cannot guard that, so unfortunately that ends up being game for game 2. And we are pulling up game 3 right now as I speak. Alright, so our last game we're playing into Narukami, which is kind of like seen as like a instant losing matchup for a lot of people, but it's not always. I guess it depends on how you play the matchup and what kind of triggers are checked. So we do attack him. He attacks us, gets a draw trigger, and attacks us with rear guard. We block. Then we ride, and we call. He gets a critical. So I was like, dang, this guy's pretty lucky. Then we attack his Vanguard. We do get a heal ourselves, so that's very helpful. He does use the stride skill to counter boss 1, get rid of 1 from the drop and 1 from the damage. But he checks 3 trigger, or he checks 3 trigger checks, and he only gets a heal, so it's not that big of a deal. We do stride. So I'm going into Verano and calling, you know, 1 off of Ahsha skill, calling the Lani. Alright, and then we activated the flower screen to give the same name as Ronnie Mardukas. And then we are at numero uno. So we do attack his Vanguard and we check no triggers. He checks the heal trigger actually. He uses the skill of a starter. So right here he's going to voltage. It looks like to set up for like a really big column push. So I no guard the Vanguard, and then I double heal, which is pretty great. Like, my deck wants me to live, so I followed its wishes and attempted to live. So I call it as Mardukas, which bloomed Mardukas and gave 6k to my Vanguard. And then we stride. We stride into... We stride into Glorious Bloom. We use the skill of Ahsha to call 1, It gets the blooms off, then Thuria skill bounces the card. Then we counter blast 1, soul blast 1, and flip for Glorious Bloom Ahsha. And then our Vanguards get 15 per, you know, what's going on. So he no guards he no guards our first rear guard, then takes the second one. And then he got both of our rear guards with the Bulwark skill, so wasn't all that bad. He does make us bind a lot of cards, so we're kind of questioning like life right now because we're already in a really bad matchup, and we're just trying to struggle to survive as we can. So I was correcting the powers for him because his powers were off, which did matter. He attacks us for 62. And then I PG'd it so I could check top 5. Thankfully, I got a Ronnie off of it, because you guys will see how that's going to save me. So we G-guard with Katrina, call Thuria as Lonnie. And then, yeah. So we stride into the GB8. We counter blast Soul Blast and call a Ronnie. And then we call our PG because we're pretty much desperate at this point. Thankfully for us, he doesn't have any heals in his hand, so we're able to just attack him willy-nilly. So we attack him for 15, then 34, then use the GB8 skill to call 3 units. And since we're calling over bloom units, those abilities still do trigger. The Mardukas bloom went off 10 times. Lonnie goes off 6 times, I believe. So that made both of our rear guards 66, and one of them goes up to 67 after that. And then we attack him with our final attack, and it ends up being game. So yeah, the Neo Nectar GB8, guys, is actually quite powerful. Like, I really like the deck myself. But yeah, that has been the Neo Nectar GB8 deck. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, leave me a like. It means more than you think. Like, share with your friends. Subscribe, check out the Cardfight Empire Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Patreon. Thank you guys for those of you who support to my Patreon. This has been Josh from Cardfight Empire, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.